Okay, let's kick this off with something pretty wild. Did you know there's this plant, right? A cactus, actually, that can totally change how you see the world, but owning it could land you in trouble in most places. Yet for some people, it's like central to their religion and totally legal for them, that whole contradiction. That's what we're diving into today. Peyote.
It really is fascinating, isn't it? How one single cactus can be seen so differently. Illegal drug, sacred medicine,
Yeah,
object of scientific curiosity, all at the same time.
exactly. We're talking Lophophora williamsii. That's the scientific name. Peyote. It's a hallucinogenic cactus, mostly found down in the Chihuahuan Desert, sort of straddling the U.S.-Mexico border there.
Right, that region.
Now, maybe you're listening because, I don't know, you're curious about this kind of stuff, altered states.
Huh.
Or maybe you've heard about peyote, read about it, or you're interested in the cultural side of things.
Mhm.
Whatever the reason, our mission here is to unpack what peyote actually is, how it works on the brain, what the effects are like, and importantly, what the risks might be, all based on the science we have available.
And thinking bigger picture, peyote is kind of a window into how we as societies deal with substances that shift consciousness.
Yeah.
You see how culture, law, history, it all shapes our relationship with these things.
Totally. And guiding us through this, we're using insights from a YouTube transcript. It's by the traveling scientist Jesse Crow. The video is called How Does Peyote Work? The Science of Mescaline. So let's start right at the beginning. What is peyote?
Okay, so fundamentally, it's a cactus. Lophophora williamsii, like you said, native to that Chihuahuan Desert area.
Mm-hmm.
And the legal thing is super important to mention up front. Mostly around the world, illegal. Possession, use, cultivation. Generally banned.
But there are those big exceptions you mentioned.
Exactly, big exceptions. Primarily for religious and sacred use, especially within certain Native American communities in the U.S., where it's legally protected for those specific ceremonial contexts.
It's such a strange balancing act, legally speaking. Now, the reason it's not just, any old cactus, that comes down to the chemistry, doesn't it?
Precisely. Peyote contains these natural chemical compounds. They're called alkaloids. And the star player, the one really responsible for the hallucinogenic effects, is mescaline. That's the key one.
Mescaline. Got it. So that's the active ingredient. How does it actually get from the cactus into someone's system to cause effects? Like, how do people take it?
Well, the source mentions a few ways. One common method is eating the dried tops of the cactus. They call them crowns or buttons.
Right, the little button thing.
Yeah, or they might boil the cactus down into a kind of tea, drink that. And another way is grinding the dried peyote into a powder and putting it in capsules.
It doesn't sound particularly tasty either way. But once it's ingested, how fast do things start happening? And how long does the whole experience last?
Generally, you'd start feeling the effects within maybe an hour or so, sometimes a bit less, sometimes a bit more. And the duration, well, it can be pretty long. We're talking potentially up to 12 hours.
12 hours. Wow. That's a serious chunk of time to have your reality shifted. So what's going on biochemically inside the brain during all that time? What's the actual mechanism?
Okay, so this loops back to mescaline. The full chemical name, if you're curious, is 2,3,3,5-5 trimethoxyphenethylamine. It's what's called a phenethylamine. And it's classed as a hallucinogen. Its effects have some similarities to, say, LSD.
Okay.
And crucially, once it gets into your bloodstream, it's able to cross the blood-brain barrier.
That protective layer. So mescaline gets past security into the brain. Then what?
Once it's inside, its main action is interacting with specific receptors for serotonin, the neurotransmitter serotonin, specifically the 5-HT2A receptor subtype.
5-HT2A.
And what's really interesting here is that this is the exact same type of receptor that other classic hallucinogens target. LSD, psilocybin from magic mushrooms, they all hit this 5-HT2A receptor.
Okay. So that's the common link. By lashing onto those serotonin receptors, mescaline basically messes with the brain's normal communication lines, leading to, the effects people experience. Makes sense. So what are those effects typically like? What kind of changes in perception are we talking about?
It can be a really wide range. The source mentions vivid hallucinations, so seeing things that aren't actually there. You can also get visual distortions, things looking warped, maybe blurry, colors seeming extra bright, or objects appearing to sort of breathe or shift.
Weird.
Yeah, and auditory stuff too. Sounds might be different, louder, distorted, or you might hear things that aren't real sounds. And then there's synesthesia. That's the mixing of senses, like hearing colors or maybe tasting sounds.
Wow, synesthesia, that's fascinating. And these kinds of really profound sensory shifts, they can last that whole 12 hours.
Yeah, the source points out they can persist for that long duration. They do gradually fade, of course, as your body breaks down the mescaline. And subjectively, how it feels, often described pretty positively. People might say it was enjoyable, insightful, maybe spiritually meaningful. Dreamlike is another word used. And there's always a but, isn't there? The source suggests it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are potential downsides, negative stuff too.
That's absolutely critical to talk about, yeah. While many reports are positive, you absolutely have to acknowledge the risks. The source clearly mentions some common unwanted side effects, like vomiting, for instance.
Right, just the body reacting.
Could be that, yeah. Maybe taking too much, or just individual sensitivity. Some people just react physically that way.
Makes sense. What about the mental side, the psychological stuff? Anxiety comes up. Yes, anxiety is a big one. I mean, look, peyote powerfully affects your brain, your perception.
Yeah.
That can be pretty disorienting for some people. And that disorientation, that feeling of losing control, it can trigger unease, fear, anxiety. And sometimes that can escalate into what people call a bad trip, which is a really scary, unpleasant experience.
Yeah, bad trip definitely sounds like something to avoid. Does the source give any hints on how to handle that if it happens?
It does touch on the importance of set and setting, the environment you're in and who you're with. Being in a calm, safe place with people you trust, that's seen as really crucial if someone chooses to use it. And the advice often given is try to stay calm. Try to sort of go with the experience rather than fighting it. Fighting it can sometimes make the anxiety worse.
That idea of going with it or embracing it, it sounds like your mindset going in really matters. Okay, what about physical danger, like actual overdose risk?
The source indicates that a serious overdose, while technically possible, seems relatively unlikely with peyote compared to some other substances. But unlikely doesn't mean impossible. And if someone has taken way too much, getting medical help immediately is definitely the right call. Always err on the side of caution.
Okay, so let's try and wrap up the key takeaways from this source, this deep dive into the science. Peyote, hallucinogenic cactus. Contains mescaline, that's the main psychoactive bit. Mescaline gets into the brain, hits those serotonin receptors of 5-HT2A1.
Right, same ones LSD uses.
Which leads to big changes in perception. Hallucinations, weird visuals, sounds, maybe synesthesia. Can last up to 12 hours, often feels positive, insightful, but definitely carries risks, nausea, vomiting, and significant anxiety, potentially leading to a really rough, bad trip.
Yeah, I think that covers the core scientific points pretty well.
So here's something to maybe chew on after this. We've looked at the brain chemistry, right, what mescaline does, but think about the bigger picture. Why is this plant something that grows naturally, something with this incredibly long history of ritual use? Why is it illegal in most places? What does that tell us about how our society views, well, non-ordinary states of consciousness? And how do we balance respecting cultural traditions and maybe individual choice with the scientific understanding and the legal controls? It's complicated, isn't it?
It really forces you to think about how we label things, how we decide what's acceptable or not, and what values are driving those decisions. It's definitely complex.
Absolutely. So if this dive into peyote science got you thinking, definitely don't stop here. You could explore more about, say, psychedelic research generally. There's a lot happening there. Or dive deeper into neurochemistry if that's your thing. Or look into the cultural history, especially its significance for indigenous peoples. That's a whole rich area. Maybe even check the specific laws where you live or read some anthropology about its role in spiritual life. Loads more to uncover if you're curious.